Hi, this is DarkFox127 and welcome to an update video. This is something that I haven't done on this channel for a very long time. In fact, I haven't done a lot in the modding community for, I don't know, probably coming up on a year now. An awful lot has happened to me recently and I wanted to make this video. It's going to be completely unscripted, although I do want to split it into sections and I've got a sort of idea of what I'm going to talk about. But I wanted to do one of these just to kind of get everybody on board with where I've been, what I'm doing at the moment, and what I likely plan on doing going forward. But unlike past videos like this one, without promising anything or hyping anything, because as you will discover if you watch this video through, I'm pretty much at a stage where I'm pretty sure of what I want to do, where I want to be going, and yeah, well, I'll explain it as we go. So I will have timestamps on this video, so you'll be able to scrub through, go to exactly where you want to go. So if you just want to know what's changing, what the plans are, skip ahead to that. But what I want to do at the start of this video is I really want to just give a bit of a backstory. So I want to go back to the beginning of what I suppose is my modding story. And I want to go from where I started and leading into where I am today. And hopefully this can also serve some people, you know, looking to get into modding, aspiring to mod in some way. And I don't know, by sharing my own story, maybe, you know, help others in some kind of way. So my modding story begins back when I used to live at my parents' house. This would have been 2011, most likely, near the end of it, or even start of 2012, when Skyrim was released. In the past, I have played around an awful lot. I've always been very creative on video games. I've played around with Timesplitters 2, making maps, doing stories. I used to dive onto Far Cry and Far Cry 2 and create maps on there. Eventually, being such a big fan of the Halo series, I did maps for Halo 3 and Halo Reach. None of these things were ever put online, so to speak, or sort of hyped up or thrown out to any communities. It was just stuff that I did because I enjoyed doing it. And then anyone who got to see them or play them was kind of cool. So I wasn't in any part of any kind of modding community as such back then. I just enjoyed doing creative stuff in video games. So anywhere that you get to kind of build stuff, create stuff, mold stuff to your own imagination, I very much love, which explains how I got into the modding scene. So soon after Skyrim released, I bought a copy because Skyrim is amazing. I enjoyed Morrowind and Oblivion, played those back on console, so never had any mods installed, never did any modding there, obviously, because it's been on console, not PC. Having recently moved to the PC and built my own PC, of which I've done many of now, I bought Skyrim. And soon after discovered that there's a whole modding scene. There was modding for Morrowind and Oblivion, and there was a creation kit for the Elder Scrolls Skyrim, which I didn't really know about. And I was like, what's this thing? So took a look at it, watched the Bethesda videos, downloaded it, got into it. I went back and watched sort of pre-established little video tutorial series on it, such as Best in Slot had a really good series on the creation kit just to help get my head around it. And then soon after that, I decided, I don't know why, I don't know what made me do it, but I thought I'd do my own little mini series on just creating a mod for Skyrim. And that very quickly grew into me building a YouTube channel. Nothing major, nothing huge, as you'll see. What, 5,000 subscribers, 6,000 maybe now. I honestly haven't checked it in a while. But I built a nice little community of people and a nice small channel where people came to learn about the creation kit. So every time I played with something new and I discovered something and figured something out and essentially backward engineered stuff, I would do a video on it and share it. And before I knew it, I had 100, 200 maybe by now videos on the Skyrim creation kit. And over the years, I've just sort of developed that. So being back living in my parents' house, it was shortly after finishing college where I did computer maintenance. I was getting into the modding scene and whatnot. And eventually I got booted out. My mum and dad decided to retire, pack up, and move abroad. Don't really blame them. It was a kick up the arse for me to say, look, it's time for the real world now. Stop sitting in your bedroom making video game stuff and go out and get a job and earn some money. YouTube would give me a smidgen of revenue if I even had it turned on back then. I can't remember. But I wasn't doing the whole YouTube thing for money. I was doing it just because it was fun. So I was really struggling to find work. I was living off of government benefits, and I lived in a few different flats. And during that time, you'd think that would have been a kick up the arse, kicking me out of the house and having me get my own flat. But it became very easy to sit there and essentially have the government just throw money at you for doing literally nothing. I would search for jobs. I did work for a few different companies doing unpaid work, paid work, not very well paid work, but there wasn't really any career progression there. It was all pretty much dead end jobs. I even decided to try something different at one point, and I did casino work. So I became a croupier, dealing all the blackjack, messing with all the cards, spinning the roulette wheel. That was fun, but the actual job wasn't really for me. I packed that in. But around that same time, so at this point I was pretty much living on my own, spending 16 hours a day, maybe even longer, going into the early mornings of the next day, just modding, creating mods, creating videos, streaming on Twitch, and honestly not doing a fat lot. I wasn't pushing my career forward. I wasn't learning anything new that would get me official qualifications. I wasn't doing much at all, and honestly, it was not good for me. Do I regret all of it? No, certainly not. A lot of it was a lot of fun. It was great just streaming for 8-9 hours, making mods, having a laugh with people. I met some incredible people along the way, both in person and online. During that time, but I would say it was probably a 5-ish year period where I was in and out of work, and pretty much addicted to modding. And a lot of you will kind of joke about it like, oh yeah, I can't get off the creation kit, it's addictive. It literally was addictive for me. It was an addiction. I'd always have a new idea, I'd be working on something new, I'd be enjoying creating. I couldn't get off it, I couldn't stop. That led me to, excuse me, bad throat today. That actually led me to losing good friends. That led me to becoming a lot more isolated. I probably had 1-2 friends. That was it, and I'd see them every now and then. One I'd see quite regularly, who I don't speak to or interact with anymore, just because times change, you move on. And it was, to look in from the outside, pretty miserable and not great. However, what the modding did do for me, I enjoyed it. I made some new friends, really good, met some wonderful people online, and I met my partner. And that's where things started to go on the up. So I eventually came to the point where my flat lease was up, my third flat that I'd lived in, and I'd been bouncing around the same area into different flats. And I didn't have anywhere to go. And I was still doing my modding. I'd left the casino work because it just wasn't for me. I couldn't handle it anymore. It was night work. It was 10-day stretches of shifts. It was night work, day work. It was rough. It was difficult. But I'd built up some cash from it. And I went to move in with my partner and her parents, which at first felt very awkward and sort of put me on the spot and put a bit of pressure on me to go out and actually do something and find some work. And that's what I did. So I moved about 300 miles away from where my family was, and some still were. I've still got a close relative back where I lived for pretty much the whole of my life up to that point. And my parents had moved away, not really abroad, sort of in the, just not overseas essentially, to another country, but not overseas. And my sister had also moved to that same location, and so I thought, fuck it, I'm gonna move. So I moved 300 mile away, and so I'm just checking it's still recording. I moved 300 mile away, and I made a fresh start. I continued my modding. I was still doing my live streams. I was still modding, but I was starting to split that time up a little bit more to do other things. And an opportunity came up for a job position. At this point, I had X amount of years with no real job experience within the IT industry. And I became a service desk analyst. So just pretty much first line support for computing. I won't tell you who for or where. I won't go into that. But I wound up doing that for 4 years, and I managed to balance that really nicely with doing some modding, enjoying time with my partner, and also obviously working and making a living and earning some cash. At the same time, people were really kind enough to go onto Patreon and help support me that way, which basically paid for the new equipment that I continued to upgrade and sort of progress through with my modding stuff. So it felt like I was suddenly kind of I was building a kind of modding career, not making an awful lot, a little bit from Nexus, a little bit of Patreon, still do today, just from the generosity of people who enjoyed my content that I made, whether that be videos or mods. And then I was also starting to progress in my career. And interestingly enough, although I spent a good 5 years not doing an awful lot, or what felt like not an awful lot, it turned out that I actually built up a lot of life skills. And transferable skills, as they like to call them. And those helped me get into that job that I was in for a good 4 years until somewhat recently, last year. And all of a sudden, from living with my partner and her parents for, I think it must have been 2-3 years, could be longer. I've lost track of time now. This is where things started to move incredibly quickly and change so drastically. And meeting my partner online through modding has been the best thing I have ever done in my entire life. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It's not really private, it's public knowledge. Me being DarkFox127, if you want to use the alias for my partner, it's SimSim899. I suppose I'll put a link in the description if I remember. She was also modding, met her through the modding. She did some work on Beyond Skyrim Bruma, and she had got started by watching my videos. We grew very close, obviously, having moved in with her, and all of a sudden, I don't know what triggered it, but we thought we'd look for houses. So at this point, for a few years, I've been saving up all my money. As you can imagine, living with her parents meant I could save a good amount of money. She did the same. She got into game development, and she got a couple of decent sort of starting positions in game development before she moved on to where she is now. And she's doing incredibly well, thankfully. So we'd built up a lot of money, and we thought, let's have a look and see what there are house-wise. And there were some new build areas going on, about 3 or 4 areas nearby that were doing new build houses. I was pretty set on new build. For reasons I won't go into in my history, I've always wanted to, I thought if I ever had my own house, which I was thinking was becoming nigh impossible before I moved in with my partner, I'd have had a new build. So we're looking at these new builds, and then all of a sudden we were realizing that development was wrapping up pretty quickly. And so we went from an idea into buying a house in the space of a couple of months. And in that same couple of months, and this was late last year, in that same couple of months, I was thinking about changing jobs, because the job that I had got, as fantastic as it was, had come to a stage where I felt it had run its course and I was struggling with it. Not that it was difficult, struggling in the fact that I couldn't be around the people there anymore, and just the place. Lovely people there, met some fantastic people again, but it, especially after the pandemic, it went a little downhill. It wasn't the right place for me anymore. And similar to the houses, I was like, I'm going to have a look and see if there's anything job-wise. And then one of my colleagues at that place sent me a link and said, "Hey, you should apply for this job. Why not?" And I looked at it, and I always thought first line, I'd go into second line, and I'd sort of hang around and stay there, and then maybe into third, and just develop my skills. And this is when I sat down, I looked at this job, and it wasn't for second or third line support. This was for a line manager position. And again, I won't tell you where or who with. But this was for a line manager position of a small team of people doing the role that I'd just spent 4 years, or the better part of 4 years doing. And I looked at it and I thought, at first, I thought, no, that's not where I wanted to go. I don't think I could do that. But then on further reflection, I was like, you know what? I've kind of got the skills for it. I've got the knack for it. And I've done an element of it already in these 4 years. So I went for it. I thought, what's the worst that could happen? They offer me the job and I don't want it. They don't offer me the job, but I get the experience from an interview. So I went for it. And the same evening that we were planning to be handed the keys for our new house the day after, that same evening I got a telephone call and they offered me the job. And I froze. I couldn't believe it. I had gone from, in such a short moment, I had gone from having no real solid career or future ahead of me, being alone in a flat, to having a person that I love very much, and not just a job, but career progression into a higher up job. And I couldn't believe it. And to this day, to some extent, I still can't. But in that short space of time, everything changed again. So it all changed when I moved that 300 miles to live with my partner. But I mean, this time it really changed. As I'm saying a lot of this, it feels very personal. I'm being very careful not to go into personal details with it. I'm kind of giving you a brief because it is YouTube. It's, it's all online for all to see. But everything changed. And all of a sudden, and I knew this would be the case, it was going to be very difficult to do that mod work balance anymore. Because all of a sudden, I'm also throwing in needing to look after this new house. And there's a load of new jobs and responsibilities, or chores, if you will, that accompany having a house and living with a partner, and having to, pay the bills, manage different services that you pay for. There was all of the house stuff. There was all of the new job stuff, which, let me tell you, management, it can be amazing, but it's a challenge. It is a very big challenge, and you know me, I'm up for a challenge. And I'm absolutely loving the job. At this moment in time, at the time of recording this video, I love my job. And that is something that I'm incredibly fortunate to be able to say. Not everybody can say that. But I love my job. I really enjoy my job. I really enjoy interacting with the people there on a day-to-day. And it's just crazy to look back on where I was. And in the space of what's probably about 8 years, I feel old now. Probably in like a 10-year space, if I looked at the start of that and then the end of it, it's crazy to see where life can sometimes take you. And so, like I was saying, now I'm in that position where it's very difficult to balance everything. Balancing the work life, getting used to the new work, balancing, still being able to do modding, still being able to do other hobbies. I have other hobbies, like playing the video games, and also, different shows and whatnot, and going out into the real world and doing things. Yeah, there's a world out there as well. Yeah, 4K, even 8K. Looks amazing. It's very realistic. Just being silly now. But there's so much more to try and pack into every day all of a sudden. And one of the things I loved about modding, and that I still love about modding, is the creative part of it, and it engaging that part of my brain that keeps me thinking, keeps my brain ticking over and fresh, keeps me on my toes. It really scratches a creative itch in me, whether it's designing my own website to go with all of that stuff, whether it's messing around with designing a lot of the graphical stuff around the Twitch and the YouTube, the thumbnails, editing the videos together, recording the videos, enjoying teaching. There's so many elements of modding, and you can kind of see where some of that would go into IT and especially management roles, and where there's a lot of mentoring, essentially sort of teaching. All of a sudden, a lot of the stuff that I love about modding, I'm now doing far more on a day-to-day basis for my current role. So at the end of that day, you can imagine how my brain kind of feels, and you see where I'm coming at now, and where I'm going with this whole video, and the reason that I've decided to tell this story. It makes leaving time for modding and everything else, and especially family time, which is the most important, it makes it very difficult to manage that time. And as organized as a person as I am, I can't always stick to a schedule, and I can't stick to a very set plan when it comes to my life. When it comes to modding and a video being at a set length and set processes and step by step or anything like that, I'm very specific. When it just comes to life, I need to have that ability to do what I feel like doing in the moment. And what I'd set up with my modding prior to getting this new role late last year is I've kind of lost my train of thought there. But it was working, and now with this new job, modding has to happen when I feel like doing it. So at the time of recording this, I've got a week off. It's the first week off I've taken since I started. I've been there for 6 months-ish already, which is crazy. Time is flying by. And in this week is kind of a good time to have the extra time to kind of jump onto my mods, do a few things that I wanted to do, scratch that modding itch that I do still have, and do other things as well. But on the day-to-day, week by week when I'm working, I've come to a point where I need to sit down and decide, okay, where am I at with modding? Where am I at with everything else? What do I now want to do? What am I going to do? So that leads on to this next part of the video. I hope that any of you that watched and listened to this part of the video, my story, hope it was interesting. Hopefully it tells a little bit more about me and is maybe helpful in some way, whatever way that might be for people. So I'm going to dive on to the next subject now, which is where am I at and what am I going to be doing in the whole modding scene? So, if you've watched the first part of the video and you haven't just skipped to this, great. I hope you enjoyed it. It was very serious, and it was a really good way for me to reflect and kind of take a look at everything that I've done. This part of the video, as I said, is now going to be, okay, so where am I at now? I'm in a full-time managerial role, which is very taxing on the brain, a very demanding job, and I'm trying to balance that with personal life, things outside of modding, and also looking after a house that I've now moved into. And let me tell you, moving into a new house, that's a lot of work. That is some hard work. Thankfully, mostly settled now. So this leaves modding in a bit of a funny spot. So I really do still enjoy modding. I still want to mod Skyrim, but at the same time, a lot of the time after each day, as I said in the first part of this video, I don't always feel like doing it, and it's going to have to be a spur of the moment thing. So one of the things that has continued to loom over my head, and I'll have a separate small video, possibly, maybe, for this, is Patreon. So any of you watching who have ever dropped me a tip on Twitch, or you are a current or previous patron of my work, my content, first of all, thank you. It has meant the world to me. It has pretty much always gone back into the content itself. It's allowed me to expand sort of the YouTube channel, increase the professionalism, I suppose, if you want to call it that, of my videos and whatnot. It's really let me push some of the boundaries of my content, and it's made such a difference, and it means the world to me that people are willing to hand over their hard-earned cash just for some guy on the internet that decided to make some videos, stream some creation kit, and create some cool mods. That's amazing. So first of all, thank you. At the same time, that looms over me that people are now subscribed to me, if you want to call it that, on Patreon, still handing over their cash, and I don't feel like I'm delivering anything at the moment, and especially from the last 3 to 6 months. So at this point, I would say I can't promise anything anymore. I'm not going to promise tiers and rewards or any of that stuff that I used to be all into, like, oh, how can we do a cool thing here and give these tiers cool names? And I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just going to say, if you want to show your appreciation for anything that I'm currently doing, or have done in the past that you're continuing to enjoy, so whether you're still playing one of my mods, still consuming the content that I've made, and you still want to show that support, I'm going to leave it open for you to do so, because it still makes a hell of a difference, especially to the monthly bills, and for wanting to invest in more cool tech stuff to improve my content and do fun stuff around modding. So I'm not going to shut it off, but I am going to dial it down and kind of change it so it's completely transparent in the sense of I'm not going to promise anything in return, other than obviously you can continue to access everything that I've put out there, and you'll probably get early access still to some of the future stuff. So if I have a mod that at this time of the video I'm making, Busy Follower Framework, which I'm hopefully going to be testing and then releasing before it's released, a while before, I'll send like the beta out, or I think another beta, I've already done a beta already, to patrons. So little things like that, you will get some perks, but they're going to be far and few between. So for patrons, I want to thank you, and I will not be offended if you decide to pull your patronage away now, because I'm not offering consistent content or any specific, benefits and stuff like that. By all means, go and put that money to other creators that are still out there making content, who are in more need of that money now than maybe I am. So I'm not going to drop names. I don't think that'd be fair. But there are certainly some people that I think I've recommended on my channel that are still very much active, some of which do this as a living, the whole YouTube and modding and Twitch and whatnot. If you want to funnel some money toward them instead of me, please go ahead. But if you do, like I say, want to continue supporting me, I'm grateful for it. it will still go into the same stuff it did before. But there will be less of it. So that's the Patreon side of things. I wanna make that. I wanted to update that and put that in a position where I no longer had that kind of looming over me, that a slight feeling of guilt that I hadn't streamed or modded or done anything. I need to be in a position where I can just mod when I feel like it. I can just stream when I'm ready. And I would apply the same rules to anybody who's subscribed on Twitch to me. I do have the standard Twitch benefits of like cool emotes and all that stuff, but I cannot promise that I'm going to have regular streaming anymore. I'm going to remove the schedule and I'm just going to stream when I can, when I feel like it, and especially in times where I've got an extended time off work where I am going to be sat in front of the computer anyway, I might well do more streaming there. So I'll probably have kind of peaks and troughs of when I'm streaming and when I'm not very active. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to dial back the streaming, dial back the Patreon. I'm dialing back the modding as a whole, and it's just going to be an as and when I feel like it and when I can do it. So I'm not going to, hype things up and promise things unless there's a project that's actually finished, that's set for release, in which case I'll do a video on it, which I think my past 1 or 2 videos have been surrounding, which are actual releases of mods like Cat's Life 2 and Simple Outfit Manager. By the way, still love making videos, especially when I'm editing trailers and stuff together. I've always enjoyed doing trailers, and hopefully I'll still do more. So in terms of Skyrim itself, Skyrim I feel like has definitely hit that stage in its life cycle where it's not as popular as it once was. It doesn't get the downloads that it once did for things. Just because you don't get as many downloads and people liking your mod, it's no reason to stop. I've always said, mod if you enjoy modding. Create because you enjoy creating it. And if people download it, enjoy it, that's a bonus. And that's cool. Don't ever look at your downloads for your mod and go, well, that didn't, get lots of downloads. People don't like it. What a waste of time. It wasn't a waste of time if you enjoyed it, and especially if you learned from it. I've learned a lot from modding, as I spoke of in the part 1 of the video. So, in terms of Skyrim modding, I do have 2 projects that I would say were still pending for me, or ongoing, I should say. So I had Busy Follower Framework, which is pretty much there. It's finished and just needs testing, but the extent of the testing is difficult because of the sort of systems that ties into. So check out my website if you want to. Oh, no, actually, I've kind of removed it from the website. I've taken the work in progress away from the website, which, by the way, I've completely updated, overhauled. In short, Wix broke everything, and I checked it, and I was like, what the So I updated it and had some fun redesigning it a little bit. And I'm basically taking away work in progress stuff as not to build false hope for things. But I do want to get Busy Follower Framework out. It was a lot of fun. I did like 3 revisions of it over the last year or so, and it's insane. And I'm really proud of that stuff. The scripting that I did for that. So I'm hoping to get that out. And the only other one was the Code of Moloch. Now this is one that takes a lot of tedious work with it, which can be done on live streams and whatnot. But I'm not going to promise anything about the Code of Moloch. I know a lot of people got excited about an orc stronghold that you can build from the ground up and get your own orcs in, order them around, send them off on adventures to bring stuff back for you and things like that. If it ever happens, it will be awesome, but I'm not going to promise it. So where my mind does lie in terms of modding going forward, I do want to just check that I'm covering everything. So what I've got left is, okay, I'll briefly mention YouTube first. YouTube has been a place for 2 things. YouTube has been a place for creation kit videos. So whether that be long 3-hour streams in the past of making things like Cranthea Tower and Cranthea Tower Reborn, it mainly held creation kit tutorials. How to do this, how to do that. And although there's a lot of things that I still haven't managed to share with the community, I'm lightly done making creation kit tutorials for Skyrim because I just don't have the time anymore. And I've kind of said this already in the past. The other thing it was used for was, as I've spoke of a little earlier, it would have been announcements or trailers for my mods and things like that. So that is what will continue. When I have done a project and I'm releasing it, I'll likely make a cool little trailer for it and put it up, and then that gives you the release date and so on and so forth. It announces it. So I'll continue to do that sort of stuff. But otherwise, for the time being, and this leads nicer on to the point I was going to talk about, for the time being, my YouTube is going to be in a bit of a sleep state. So where I think things might change and be a little revitalized are Starfield. I'm really hoping Starfield is good and built on a bit of a more modern engine. And I would love to enjoy that game when it comes out. I'm not hyped for it. I'm not getting my hopes up for it. I'm simply looking at it as an option. I looked at Fallout 4 and got super hyped for it and thought, I'm going to mod that when that comes out. I did one mod for it and that was it. I didn't get into it. I didn't enjoy the game as I thought I would, and I certainly didn't enjoy interacting with that creation kit. So it fell through. So what I'm going to say is the possibility is Starfield. When that comes out, to play it, to stream playing it, and to also possibly make mods for it, and then make videos for whatever tools we're given to mod that game is kind of where I'd like to go to. That'd be interesting. There's a lot of stuff that I've done in the past, a lot of ways that I've created videos, edited videos in the past. If I could do it all again, it would be so much tidier, so much cleaner. The videos would be much higher quality. I know a lot of you don't care about the audio quality and visual and all that crap. I do. And Starfield will give me that chance to start afresh with all the knowledge and all the experience that I've got from my past modding, with Skyrim especially, to sort of do a new clean slate and transition, sticking with Bethesda titles, something which is hopefully familiar but different and new and fresh. So that is where I want to go. So that's the door I'm leaving open, is into Starfield, I hope. And if Starfield doesn't really kick off and happen, or it turns into this horrible big failure and a flop, or I have the same thoughts with it as I did with Fallout, or experience the same sort of thing, then I'll probably wait for the next Elder Scrolls, or sit down again and take a look at things and make a decision on, do I just stop? So in a nutshell, I still love modding. I still enjoy modding. As much as I spoke about some of the negatives of my past in part 1, I don't regret any of it. It's all led me to where I am today. If I hadn't got addicted to modding, I don't know where I'd be today. If I hadn't met my partner, I dread to think where I would be today. It has been a hell of a journey, and I've been modding for over 10 years now, and I don't know where it's gone. I've met some amazing people. I've lost friends with some amazing people. I've lost touch with some amazing people. But regardless of who you are, who I interacted with, how I interacted with, I'm grateful for it all. It has been a hell of a 10-year ride. And so this is not me saying goodbye. This is me sitting in the background observing and popping up every little now and then to do a live stream, to make a mod, to drop out a release. So let's just see what the future holds. So that was a really random ramble, and I needed to say it. And I hope that if you've watched all of that video, some of that video, or skipped to the end going, what the fuck is he on about? Regardless, thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.